So thanks, everybody. This is Legislation and Administration Committee of the RTM on January 6, 2021, 7:32 p.m. We are meeting to discuss proposed amendments to the Senior and Disabled Tax Relief Ordinance. And we have Chris from Board of Finance. I think you're going to do Chris DeWitt's going to do a presentation or just a conversation, nothing fancy for us. I believe I'm not able to share screen here, and I don't think anyone is. So I think I shared out the documents, and hopefully people can follow along the documents that were in the email that I sent recently. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Chris.
Okay, thanks, Josh. Well, listen, Happy New Year, first off. Yeah, I can walk through the presentation if you guys like, or I mean, I'm sure everyone's reviewed everything. If you just want to ask me questions, whatever's, you know.
Unless other people disagree, the most important thing to me is to go through the actual ordinance and the red line, and to have you kind of walk us through the red line. But I'm happy to do a presentation as well if you'd like to do that, or if people want that.
Again, it's either way. This is I don't know if it's unique, but I'll call it unique situation, right? There's a whole bunch of math and a whole bunch of work that Ross Murray does for the town and for me as the chairman of this committee to generate numbers. And if you look at the ordinance, a couple words have changed here and there. And you're like, oh, what does this all mean? So there's a lot of math behind it, which is in the present.
Okay.
Through the actual words and why stuff was changed or whatever. I mean, if you guys are comfortable with the math or whatever, and you've reviewed it, then like I said, I'll definitely leave it up to however you guys would like to proceed.
Chris, this presentation, this has the numbers that Ross revised from the fall, right? Because
no, these are a year old.
Oh, these are a year old.
No, I'm kidding. They're new.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh, why would you have incorporated it? I didn't check that. Okay.
So obviously you didn't look at my presentation. So no. So I gave this presentation to the Board of Finance. February of last year, just before all the stuff started hitting the fan, right? And I was supposed to be coming in front of you guys like March-ish of 2020, when of course everything was hitting the fan. So a lot of this is the same rough data, but no, all the numbers have been revised. Just being a wise guy here.
So why don't you go through the presentation, and we are not able to follow along, share screens, but we can follow along ourselves, and we can still go through the red line if that still makes sense.
Okay, sounds good. All right. So slide 2 is our goal. So I had a charter, we had a goal statement, but our goals were, one of them was to maximize the number of seniors that could take advantage of the senior and disabled tax relief, right? Now, I know there had been some work that the RTM committee did that had a very similar goal. But when we got into the real math and we looked at it, especially from my perspective, I didn't believe that we were maximizing the benefits to the lowest income seniors. So if you know anything about this ordinance, right? You've got a home that's assessed at a certain value. Let's just say $300,000. And if you meet all the other criteria, which is age, and you've lived here for so long, and you reside in the town X number of months, I've kind of forgotten some of the actual requirements. But then there's a requirement of income, or a subset of income, and there's different income levels, and it's roughly 0 to like 16,000, and it goes all the way up to $70,000 of income. So what we looked at that, we said we want to maximize the benefit for the people in the lower end rather than the $70,000 top end, because, just that made sense to us, right? And we also had a goal to make sure that we weren't imposing a huge number onto the town, right? I mean, this is a big impact. I'm not going to minimize the changes here, but we also didn't want to go crazy and make this a $2 million change year over year, right? So real quickly, slide 3, how did we do this? We interviewed seniors at the senior center. We held a bunch of meetings. The Fairfield Senior Advocates group was there at every meeting. Jill was there pretty much at every meeting. We spoke to the RTM, Senior and Disabled Tax Relief Committee. Ross Murray was just sick of hearing me talk about this and running numbers and doing all that stuff. But he's one of the big reasons that we're here tonight, because he does a great job running this stuff and getting us to closure. And then at the time we were talking to the CFO, right? And it's not that I haven't specifically spoken to the new CFO about this, except in very general terms, like this is the impact to the budget this year if this gets passed. But the former CFO and I were speaking about this quite frequently. I had created some new tools for analysis, some Excel spreadsheets that I won't bore you with tonight. And then we went through a bunch of scenarios. And again, that was where Ross really, really helped out a lot. So slide 4, this is where we are today. As the ordinance is written, 1,306 households are taking benefit. 109 participants are getting the maximum benefit. So what does that mean? So 1,306 households are getting some amount of benefit from the system. 109 are getting the maximum benefit. So if you look here where you see the differences in income, the people, 109 people are maxing out in their individual range, which is a pretty good number. That's the senior and disabled tax relief as it costs us today, and if we were not to change anything in the ordinance, is $3,320,000. Now, this might change a little bit based on, Ross does some really, fine calculations to get a no kidding number for the budget. But in general terms, this is the number, and this is the number that was in last year's budget. Slide 5, and if you guys have any questions, just yell at me and stop me. Slide 5.
I actually have a question, Chris. I'm sorry. I know you said you haven't talked to the current CFO, which is understandable because he's relatively new. But what about the first select woman? I thought you were going to do a presentation to either just the first select woman or the entire board of selectmen.
So as you and I had discussed in November-ish, I said, listen, I have never presented this to the Board of Selectmen. I've briefed each one of them individually. I take that back. I have not briefed Ms. Lefkowitz on this. I said, I want to really give this to the Board of Selectmen before I come before this body. Your comment was, oh my God, we got to get this moving. We can't wait for this. And I said, okay. So I called up the first select woman and I briefed her on it. Tom Flynn had been briefed on it previously in his role as the chairman of the Board of Finance. And Brenda said, listen, I got it. I'm good with it. So as late as a month ago, maybe sooner, I have had a discussion with her, and she is supportive of the ordinance changes that would then increase the numbers we're going to talk about in the next couple slides.
Okay, so they're supportive of the impact, the budgetary impact.
I don't know if I'd say they're supportive of the impact. They're supportive of the concept of senior and disabled tax relief, but they're willing to support the increase that these changes would bring. That I think that's accurate.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So on slide 5, this is one of the outputs of the Excel spreadsheet that that I had created. When you look at the top part, look at the bottom part, makes it a little bit easier. And it says the payment percentage by average income before credits. So if in this scenario, if your house is assessed at $300,000 and you're making between $0 and $18,100, 59% of your average income would go to paying your taxes. That's if this system did not exist, right? Now, the system as it exists today, this is before our changes, and it's still that 3,320,000. Look up top. So that top box where it says after credits, right? That same $300,000 house and that same range of 0 to 18,100, the homeowners are paying, the seniors are paying 22%. So before any existing credits, if your house was assessed at $300,000 and you were making between 0 and 18,000, you'd pay 59% of your total income to taxes. Because of the language that's in place today, they're paying 22%. So this is already paying benefits, right? So we've had this in place since the 80s, if I remember, but this is just the current program. And this is important because I'm going to show you how it even gets a little bit better with the new program.
Chris, can I ask you a quick question?
Of course.
What are the colors? Are they? Is there a particular? I mean, I can see that red, yellow, green, and I can kind of guess what that means. But is there a particular cutoff or rule, or what is that based on?
No, just my logic. Green is good. Yellow, I cut it off at 25% to 50%. I said, that's yellow, that's medium-ish, and above 50% was bad, and it was red. So, but that's based. There's no standard for that except for my own visualization, if you will.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions about these charts too. I think that they're great for highlighting how the program helps. Do we have access to these charts now, like for the future committees that analyze the numbers and potential changes? Will we be able to utilize this kind of analysis and have this? Because I know that Mr. Morton was helpful in coming up with these charts. Did he give you the tools so that we can maybe pass it down to the future committees?
So Mr. Morton had an early generation of these charts, which I then took with his great help, frankly, and created an Excel spreadsheet. I have 2 Excel spreadsheets. One, when I know all the particular data that Ross has, I can plug it in. It generates the data immediately. You guys can have it. You know, I won't charge you guys too much to use it in the future. And I also have another spreadsheet which allows you to preemptively say, "Hey, I'm a new committee, and I'm wondering what would happen if I change the what do we call it here? The limits to 80% rather than 75%. It allows you to change all that stuff, and it spits out a number of what based on an average, right? You know, Ross's numbers are down to the dollar. My preliminary spreadsheet says if you make between $0 and $18,100, every household in my prediction tool, every household makes $13,689 because it's an average. It's just the way I did it, right? It's just a difference between two. So to answer your question, yes, you can have all my spreadsheets.
Thank you. That's great. And I think that it would be really helpful to just make sure Ross has it so that when a committee works with him, hopefully it will be a committee that is a joint RTM and Board of Finance committee. But when a new committee works with him, I think that it would be helpful, for him to have all those tools to give out. My other kind of comment for these graphs is that it's important to recognize that with those assessment ranges, really the most relevant ranges are the 200,000 to about 350,000, because when you take a look at our participants, over 75% fall within that range. So when you get overly concerned about the assessment ranges over greater than that, you're really thinking about a very small percentage of people in our programs.
Okay. The boundaries of this were kind of set for me, right? I didn't, the boundaries on income were debatable. Like, what income are we going to go to? There was some talk about taking the income boundary to $90,000. I nor anyone on my committee was a fan of raising that up, right? But yeah, when you're making $18,000 a year, you're probably not on the high end of this house assessment. But then again, if you've been living in your house for 30, 40 years, and you might be to the right of this at a $700,000, $800,000 appraised house, and you're still making your income is still that low. So, I mean, I guess, you're correct. I just take those numbers out just because that's what's currently in the ordinance today.
Yeah, I get it. It's just that with that, like the coding that Josh pointed out, it really brings your attention to the red areas and the yellow areas. And actually, those red and yellow areas occur in places where we have very few participants.
Okay, well, if you want to look at a $200,000 assessment of someone making an income between $0 and $18,000, without credits, you're at 39% of your income, and with credits, you're at 13%. What our committee, really wanted to do was take those not so much the assessment numbers, but the lower income levels, and make the delta between current benefits and new benefits a higher percentage for the people making the lowest amount of income, right? And less as you go out further. So it's just how big a box you want to put around it. If you want to put a box around, $200,000 to $300,000, there'd still be yellow in there, but as Josh pointed out, it's just my color coding system. So you could make it blue if you want.
Yeah.
And I don't know if sharing screen. That's awesome. Okay. Slide 6. Oh, here's our recommended changes. Sorry. So, and I don't have. I do have it. It's just going to be a little bit hard to get me there. Let me just do this real quick. Sorry about that. Okay. So if you were looking at the actual ordinance, the one big change, right? There's word changes in there, don't get me wrong, but the one big change is on page.
You want me to pull that up, Chris? Do you want to switch over to that?
No, not necessarily. Well, yeah, actually, yeah. You know what? If you could, that would be great. Actually, let's mention it.
Let's see.
There's no page numbers on this thing. Yeah, actually page 6 if you. Yeah, page 6 under the heading of tax credit. There you go. There you go. Perfect. Perfect. So my slide 6 on the PowerPoint, I just get you to the end state. So you can see the changes. What we've done is we've the from and to, right, numbers have changed from capping out at $70,000 to capping out at $77,300. Ross gives me that number, and I'm not 100% sure. I think it might. Is that, Ross? That's driven by cost of living adjustment, right?
That's correct. Every year we adjust for cost of living.
Great, thank you. So that's kind of an obligatory change when you update this document, right? Now, what else you'll notice is in the tax credit, right? You'll notice that go to the bottom of the chart, right? When you see a range from 56,000 to 77,300, we didn't change that. That tax credit at 15%, we were unwilling to change that. But what we did was we took at the lower numbers, higher than the chart, 0 to 18,600, we increased 67% to 75%. So what that, if you could see all the math that went behind that, you'd see that the bottom two from 48,000 to 77,300 had a fairly low impact in overall dollars, but the dollars up top were more significantly changed because we gave the people with less income a higher tax credit. And I got to remember, there's a max 75%. It's been a while since I've been doing
Chris?
this.
Yeah, this
Yes.
is Ross. Yeah, the max benefit that a recipient can receive is 75% of their normal bill. So that's where that 75 comes from.
Ah, yes, thank you. Thank you very much. So every person in town, whether they're getting senior tax relief or not, right, has to pay 25% of their bill. So the changes we're talking about here, for all intent and purpose, we're saying if you're a senior making between $0 and $18,600, we're going to max you out. You only have to pay 25%. So that's what the 75 represents. So, for example, the next line down, no one else is maxed out. It's just that one. It's just that one category up top. But you'll notice that we did take up each, in percentage wise, each of the other income ranges, not as significantly as maybe the first line. And again, there's a lot of math that goes behind us to generate a number. So that's for all intent. Now, if we could, I'm sorry to bounce you back, but on slide 6 of the PowerPoint, what you'll notice is, I don't know if you want to change it or you guys just want to read along. Great. That's going to, so with the recommended changes, it's going to now, we're going to have 230 people of the 1,301 households taking benefits, getting maximum benefits. So that number is going up. And I roll this up all at the end here. But what you'll see is a bigger number of people getting maximum benefit. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't somebody in the lower, the higher income ranges, but the lower part of the chart here. Doesn't mean there's no one getting benefit there. They're just not getting the maximum benefit. And we were using, and I think has been used in the past quite a bit, a measure of who's getting maximum benefit as how we're impacting the senior community, as a whole during senior tax relief. So you'll notice that the top two lines is where the majority, if not almost all, of the participants are getting maximum value, which is what we were looking to do. These changes, along with other changes in the actual ordinance, now drive the cost of this in round numbers to $3,780,000. So next chart.
And Chris, the delta, that's like what, 435,000, 432,000.
Yeah, something like that. I thought I had that written down. Funny enough, yeah, it's 430,000 ish, right? So, slide 7. Now, so you take that same chart that we're talking about before, and I had foreseen Representative Vergara's question coming, so I only highlighted the blue the boxes up to $300,000 because that's where the most benefit is, right? So you'll now notice that someone up top, which is the current state, right? If your house is assessed at $300,000 and your income range is in that first band, which is $0 to $18,100, it's by average income $13,678. You're paying 22% of your total income to your taxes. Now, when you go below, that number's changed to 15%. So that box, the chart below shows that there's a reduction in all of those 4 categories, right? The 4 income ranges, the lowest 4 income ranges, by the changes that are reflected in the ordinance. And again, that's the $3,780,000. So if you go back to our goals, which were, how do we get the most benefit of people? This did it. How are we going to benefit the people who are making the least amount of money? This chart kind of gets you there. So
increased benefits for people at the lower end, but it did not increase participation, and that was a goal of yours, to maximize participation. And it has been, Ross came to speak to us. I hope he comes to speak to the Board of Finance too. But he did show a steady decline. It's a steady decline for quite a while in participation in this program. And it doesn't address that. There's
the people getting maximum benefit, that number did increase because, so if you go to slide number 8, currently 1,306 participants at the cost of that's the actual number, 332, right? We had 109 participants getting maximum benefit. With this new plan, which raises it up to 3.8 or whatever that number is, right? That's a 14% increase. Now we have maximum people getting benefits of 230. Now, but
the RTM's proposal would have increased that number to 248 people with max benefits.
Right, and it would have cost another $400,000.
It would have
the original
the same if you take off the 90,000 income range. If you do not include that and you just lop off the 90,000 income range and keep it at 77,300, it would be less than the Board of Finance's proposed program. Our delta was $410,000, and that maxed people out, 248 of them.
So what's the discussion we're having here?
I just would like to understand if your goal was to provide maximum benefit to the people at the lowest income range, and yet the RTM proposal, which we submitted in January of, 2019, benefited more people at the lower income range. I don't understand what more the Board of Finance's proposal accomplishes.
So the RTM proposal, as I remember it, gave a blanket increase across all. So that original proposal of yours did increase the participant, did increase the whatchamacallit, the income range to $90,000. So wasn't my job to say, well, if we took this out and compared, this wasn't about comparing. This isn't about what's better. We made a decision that we weren't going to bump it to 90,000. So I had your proposal in toto, right? You had increased the participant income to 90,000, and then you did a blanket increase over all of the income ranges to be the same. And what we did was we maximized the changes with, I'm sorry?
We smoothed our increases. We did a smoothed increase for each of the income ranges so that there weren't any cliffs. As you remember, over the work in your Board of Finance subcommittee, it was a problem that your proposals created significant cliffs, and ultimately you had to take certain steps to try to smooth it a little bit, but there's still cliffs there. As you can see, there's still a huge income category. When you get to the larger income category, it ranges from 55,000 to 77,000. To not fix that while we're doing this ordinance doesn't make any sense to me. To keep those incomes all together.
So I guess I don't know what I'm doing here then, because you and I had a discussion, Representative Vergara. You're like, we're as late as November. Well, can I speak? As late as November of this year, when there was a lot of data going back and forth, Mr. Murray running numbers, and I said, "What are you guys doing? Are you changing my proposal?" And your response was, "We're going to go with whatever the Board of Finance wants." So if you guys don't want to go with what I'm doing, I'm kind of confused as what I'm doing here tonight.
I'm trying to interrogate your numbers. I'm sorry if that's a problem for you, but I'd like to understand.
It's not a problem for me.
What is the better program? And what your subcommittee did for us, which is good, I think it created a cap for the amounts that the Board of Finance wants to spend on this program. So
right.
Your proposal creates that cap for us, and we don't have to, any changes within that would be acceptable. And I'd like for you to explain the policy behind it. I mean, you said that the goals were to maximize participation. You didn't do that. You said the goals were to maximize benefits to the lowest income group. You didn't do that compared to ours. If you just lopped off the 90,000 income group, which I did agree that we wouldn't tinker with because it increases the tax loss too much. And there's too much volatility in it. I agreed that we would not meddle with that. If you just lopped that off and kept our program, it would be less than the program that you've proposed, and it would benefit more people at the lowest income range.
I disagree. So again, the proposal that I was given from the RTM subcommittee included the $90,000. Wasn't my job to change that proposal to make that proposal look better. You had a blanket increase, and when you give each category, I'm making up a number, 5% increase, right? Which I think is what the RTM did. But it was definitely a blanket number. Just by math, you're giving more of an increase to the people making the most income. So we skewed it to as I've gone through in detail here, right? We gave a higher percentage to the lower income participants. So, and all of my comparisons are off of today's baseline, because I can't compare it to your work, because we were told to do this. I could only work with what was existing today. So
But I don't
if you're
understand why
looking at
you
this
would
chart,
compare it to ours. You just scrapped it when you didn't have to. You didn't give us the time of day. You didn't. You
wow.
scrapped the work without needing to.
So first off, this is going down a really bad path, right? So I'm going to just say one thing. I gave your subcommittee and you very specifically, Representative Vergara, all the data I had. You were at every meeting. I included you in every meeting notes. To say that I scrapped, can I please finish?
I was not allowed to sit at the table, and I was not allowed to participate in the discussion.
Okay.
Wow. So
Can we stop fighting?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I gotta try and reel it in here.
yeah, I wish you would, Josh, because you know what? I'm here trying to present my proposal, and all I'm doing is getting attacked.
All right, so let's take turns. Jill, have you made your point? Is it? I think.
Well, I don't know what Jill's point is.
May I ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, I just want to make sure we close this avenue. Has been everyone spoken their piece on this? I think. So yes, go ahead, Pam.
Thanks.
Go ahead.
So obviously not having worked on either of the committees and being new to looking at all the new proposals that are before us, the end number that the original 2017 RTM proposal put together, did that cost more? Was that more expensive than this plan that we have before us right now?
Yes.
No.
Absolutely, yes.
$90,000 increase.
Wait, hold on.
You don't get to pick and choose.
Hey guys, I have the floor. Hold on 1 second, please. Okay, Chris.
The answer is yes.
Okay, why?
Well, for two reasons, which I've already named. The fact that there was an additional income range that drove it to $90,000, and the fact that there was a blanket percentage increase at every income range. And you'll notice if you go to my slide 6. Nope, sorry. Just look at if you look at the document, actually, the changes to the ordinance. We didn't give increases at the highest levels. So both of those factors reduced the number.
There were 2 RTM proposals, by the way. So if you were to do this accurately, you would address 2 different proposals. The first proposal was completely smoothed. And if you lopped off that $90,000 income increase, it would be less than your proposal. The total was $3,683,000. The delta is $338,000 from what is presently the present program. The second RTM proposal, once we got the feedback from Fairfield taxpayer and the concerns about giving more to the lowest income groups, we changed the we changed the percentages and caps at the bottom level. Like you, we did 75% at the bottom income range, and at the second to bottom, we did 66%. And that made the tax loss, if you took off that addition of the new bracket of $90,000, it was $3,758,000. The delta is $411,000.
So wait, just for clarification, since both of you are explaining your positions, because I don't understand all of this. Jill, you're saying that the proposal that you had with smoothing is $400,000 less?
Ours would have added tax loss of $338,000. The Board of Finances adds $432,000, so it's about $100,000 less.
The RTM smoothing proposal.
Yeah.
Was there a reason the Board of Finance didn't look at the smoothing proposal, Chris?
I've never seen it. You know, A year ago, more than a year ago, we were told, Board of Finance has got to look at this. This was a new revelation, right? I had never dealt with senior and disabled tax relief before in my life.
Right.
I was given the current RTM proposal. As a committee, we looked at it with Ms. Vergara in the audience, not at the front table, okay? And we said, we don't like this, and we went forward and came up with this proposal. While we were working on this, another proposal was being worked behind the scenes. I don't have that. I don't have that data.
Okay, so
Listen,
just as
So
a point of
another
clarification.
proposal from us was no, we didn't function as a committee while the Board of Finance's subcommittee was working.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So the committee didn't work on it. One person worked on it.
Okay, so when did the
No.
when was the smoothing proposal put forward?
That was what we submitted in December 2018. And then when we got the
Submitted
feedback
submitted to who? I'm sorry. I'm just trying to
It's
follow the bouncing ball.
It's the original proposal that we submitted to LNA.
Okay.
And then I gave the report to the Board of Selectmen at the end of that month. And I appeared before the Board of Finance in January of 2019.
And so the smoothing report never made it to the Board of Finance?
No, both should have been seen by the Board of Finance. Because I
But it sounds like they only got one.
The second proposal, I submitted the second proposal in the middle of our committee process after Fairfield Taxpayer had submitted its comments publicly.
Okay, so first you had a smoothing proposal that went through LNA, and then you had to go to Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance, and during the Board of Finance then took it over, and you went back to senior tax relief and came up with the plan.
No, Board of Finance hadn't taken over yet. I gave the presentation to the Board of Finance in the beginning of January, and I was in the process of also presenting it to the RTM. And when I was doing that, we submitted the second proposal where we increased the caps for the bottom two income categories.
And when you say submitted, you submitted that back to LNA or to Board of Finance?
I'm actually not sure that we did it to LNA. I think that it was
Nobody.
during the RTM committee process. It was
Okay, hold on, guys. Don't
committee.
interrupt each other. You just presented it to the full RTM, Jill? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay, and that was the one that didn't calculate the smoothing?
It built off of the original proposals, but we increased the caps for the bottom two categories so that we maxed out as many participants as we could.
But that one didn't have the smoothing. I'm trying to understand the smoothing thing.
Right. It wasn't as smooth.
Okay. And so then, Chris, the Board of Finance took what they had gotten originally, and you guys came up with this, or
Yep.
what they had gotten there. Okay. And so now the recommendation before us is to adopt what was passed by the Board of Finance, because the state statute has determined that this process starts with the Board of Finance. Is that correct?
That is correct. The process starts with us, but it ends with you.
Gotcha.
Because we don't write ordinances. So
Can we return?
So it's your recommendation that we adopt this plan. That's why we're all here tonight.
yes.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
So can we return?
Every recommendation that I've seen from a Board of Finance references a dollar amount and does not write the legislation. And instead, the Board of Finance, instead of saying what they wanted to accomplish in terms of tax loss, and they focused on policy and they rewrote the ordinance. And we are not beholden to that. They made a recommendation for the amounts that they want to apply to this program, and we have the power as the legislative body to alter the language.
So,
Mr. Chairman, if
yeah.
I may.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what Representative Vergara is talking about as far as a tax increase. I mean, I've never given a number. I've never said I only wanted to go up 420,000, but that's beside the point. The reason that I updated the ordinance, which is what you're looking at on the screen, right? Is because I didn't know how else to convey to you the changes. I mean, if you want me to hand you a spreadsheet, okay, great. There are some other changes in here. You know, so there were some significant changes in wording that we thought added benefit. But this chart you're looking at here, right? The dollar changes, if you adopt this, are backed up with reams and reams of math that Ross did and I have from my Excel spreadsheet. So I'm perfectly aware of what we were supposed to do, and I didn't know how else to do it than update the ordinance. So
Okay,
I want to write ordinances.
So, okay, thank you, everybody. Can we complete the process of Chris's presentation? I think we got off that, and I'd like to get back to it, and I'm sorry that I didn't do that sooner. Chris, do you want me to share the PowerPoint or the ordinance at this moment?
I mean, I'm pretty much through the PowerPoint presentation. Thank you.
So I would suggest that we do go through the ordinance and review the red lines if everyone's okay with that as a next step.
Sure. If you want to go to the top, I can at least at a high level, if I remember.
I mean, I think it's the red line. You know, explaining the red lines would be my request.
Oh yeah, no, believe me, yeah, I'm with you. So page 2 is the first under subsection 5, right? Let me see. I apologize.
We already made these changes. These are codified.
Yeah, I thought we already approved this one at least, right?
Yeah, these are done.
This
it says RTM update. Yep. You're right.
Okay, so this change has been made already?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Including the addition and the subtraction, right? So that's all done.
Yeah.
What page are you on here?
I don't know.
There's no page numbers. You
Yeah,
gotta
I'm
look
under
at
tax deferral.
Yep.
I think we already did this
We
as well.
codified
Did we,
these
Jill?
as well. Yeah.
Yep, this has been changed already.
I do notice what I think might be I believe after the addition of C, that paragraph that remains might need to be deleted. I believe that it may be in the actual
That's
document,
correct.
but it looks wrong here. I don't know what it looks like in the actual ordinance that was passed, but here it looks like it should be deleted.
So the update that I have, which has track changes on it, yes, the words "all benefits shall be to the period" have to be deleted. That is correct. And in my notes, I have that has already been updated by the RTM.
All right. Okay. So it comes back to this, which we have reviewed. Is there any other conversation about this? Looks like 2012 probably has been deleted already as well.
The October 1, 2019 should be 2020, right? And the qualifying income as of 2019, shouldn't it be 2020?
Sure. Yeah. This document's a year old. So yeah.
So, okay.
The next page, there's a couple little changes.
I have a question for Ross, though, just to make sure that we don't need to do anything with the language underneath. for prior credit option participants, Ross, is there anything that we have to do with this? Are there still people participating from pre-2012, 2013?
Yeah, there's still some in there, so that should stay just to protect them.
Okay. And this language is written well the way that it needs to be in calculating the benefits?
Item 2 you're referring to?
Yeah. No, for with the prior credit option participants. This is all.
Yeah, that works fine for that group that's
The
left
way
in
it's
that
stated?
category.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
So there was a small change under 9515.1 that we added that the assessor will report to the RTM and the Board of Finance. There was another slight change below. Instead of calling out the year, because in theory, you change it every every 2 years you'd have to go in and X that out. We just said of each calendar year, so to make it so you didn't have to change the damn thing every 2 seconds. And that's pretty much it. Seriously, the biggest change is that chart.
And this paragraph doesn't make any sense to me, the 95-15.4 RTM Review Committee. It doesn't make sense to not do it with the Board of Finance and have a joint committee that needs to review it annually to make sure that we're on top of problems and changes that need to be made if the Board of Finance needs to be making the recommendation and we need buy-in from both bodies.
I actually agree with you, Jill, except I still stand by that. I don't think we should be looking at this every year. I think you need to look at it. You need to figure out what an appropriate cycle is, because you've never even had a chance to allow the process to happen and for it to be reviewed, analyzed, and understood, and you're already jumping into forming a committee again. That's been my continuous beef with this over and over again. So you put it in, and then you don't even let it run its course, and you're already forming another committee. Some of this needs to breathe. So I do think that the language shouldn't, somehow, I personally think it should be exclusively the Board of Finance, but if you want it to be the RTM along with it, but I just don't agree that this should be visited every calendar year. And maybe it's even calendar years when the RTM, it's a new body. It just seems to me that, like I said, you're not giving this any opportunity to breathe. And really the assessor should have a year to analyze what happened, make a presentation, if any, as to what changes they would like to see with the program, and have the committee convened to review that.
But when have changes really been made? So there were changes made last time in 2012, and it will be 2021 if we get this done.
Well, that's because
meeting annually.
Well, that's because this has become a political football where everyone's fighting about it and nobody ever settles on everything. Let's be honest. Come on. So, let's pull administration into this. Jill, I'm speaking. Tonight you seem to want to interrupt everybody. Would you please let people finish their sentences? So it seems to me that in order to avoid all of that going forward, maybe the language needs to be stricter in the sense of doing it every other year and compelling the assessor to formulate some type of recommendation so that it kicks something off. Otherwise, I think all you're doing is creating a political football year after year after year where nothing actually gets accomplished. I'm done.
What about saying if a change is made in a particular year, then the meeting will be 2 years later? But if no change has been made, it would be every year? Just as an idea.
My issue
Chris,
just in seeing it function and having participated in it for 5 years now and not having gotten very much done except for the medical and the disability stuff, which I'm really happy we were finally able to do that, is that you form an idea of what needs to be done, and you realize that everything needs to be done very gradually. So the last time when we tried to throw in a bunch of stuff when we submitted it with the QTAV and, the eligibility limits and the caps and everything on top of it, people got really nervous. It became too much of a volatile situation, and I understand that. You have to tweak it a little bit at a time, but the group that reviews it gets an understanding of all the different things that needs to be changed. So if you lose those eyes who got an understanding of all the different features that really have problems, like right now, there's an equity issue with our QTAV. I mean, the way that we decide assets and that people's pensions aren't included, but people's IRAs are included, it's a problem. But we can't do it at the same time as we do the qualifying income and change the caps and change the percentages. I understand that now. But if you delegate it and say that you can only make these changes in 1 year and then throw it off into some point in the distance, I'm worried that you lose a handle of like all of those things that really should be changed kind of gradually. I think maybe it does need a little change year to year.
Well, my only response to that is don't forget, just because the ordinance language reads that you'll do it in the odd years or the even years, or to Karen's point, if nothing's happened, or however it ultimately is written, at any particular time, the RTM is allowed to call for a committee. But ultimately, it's the Board of Finance that owns all this, and the recommendation has to come from them. So perhaps it makes the most sense for the Board of Finance committee to have a conversation with the assessor and make a recommendation to us as to what they think is the best way to make that happen, so that all of your concerns are coordinated into that. And this situation where I've watched since 2009, this has become a political football, and it's a exercise of a lot of hot air, which is no one's intention, but that's where it ends up.
Chris, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just going to give you my limited perspective on this thing, right? This was the first time I had ever really studied senior and disabled tax relief in my 14 years as a Board of Finance member. There were things in there that were so deeply embedded. That's why we spent so much time on this. I spent 8 months of my life on this, and I'm telling you, it was a lot of work. But the bottom line really is, the one person who knows if this has got to change or not is Ross Murray. He knows if something's changed there. Now, what I think this has turned into is, certain people like the fact that this is, my thing. I think it is a really bad idea, and that the same person work on this every year. In fact, I told everyone on the Board of Finance, I'm never doing this again. And it's not because I don't want to do it. It's because I don't have the data behind it. You need a fresh perspective on it, right? So just imagine my frustration here tonight. I'm here presenting my thing, and what I'm getting tweaked on is, well, I could give you a little bit more for a couple more people for a little less money. We could have had this debate, and I thought we did have this debate. I thought this was all settled. I thought this was going to be, I thought by 8:30 I'd be sitting having a beer doing something else here, but we're sitting here debating it, right? So it definitely doesn't need to be done every year. Nothing happens in a freaking year that is so dramatic that this needs to change. It really doesn't. And if something does, Ross Murray can raise his hand and say, hey, Chris, listen, would you mind making a motion through the Board of Finance to start the process? I'll be happy to do that for as long as I'm a member of the board.
Okay, so I think thank you, Mr. DeWitt. I think we've heard your presentation and you ran through the changes. So LNA, this is on LNA's plate to potentially vote through to the body tonight or not.
Okay.
Or I do. So I guess what I'm saying is, do we want Mr. DeWitt to stay with us? And do we have more questions? Or of course, you're welcome to stay anyway, if that beer is not calling you too loudly. But
It's calling me pretty loudly. Yeah.
but I'm trying to move us to the next phase here, which is sort of the LNA discussing it and deciding what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So does anyone else have any other questions for Chris?
Yeah, this is Ross. I have one quick question. Chris, do you remember if we updated the income figures to reflect the 2020 change? And that would have happened after December of last year.
If it happened after December, Ross, I have a feeling we didn't update those.
Right. So we should leave 2019 at the top of the qualifying income table.
Yeah, that's right. You know that. Yeah. That's absolutely right.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That way I can update whatever's passed with the new percentage.
Correct. And so just so you guys know, because it was confusing to me, right? That 2019 is kind of the line in the sand. Everything going forward can work to that, but everything going backwards, you've got to draw a line somewhere. If you did open this up every year, which I don't know why you'd want to, you'd have to change those individual high end marks every year because cost of living, right?
But if we don't, it's written in there that it automatically just changes on its own, right?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
one of the changes. It used to say, I forget the exact words, but now it points to, I believe it's a state statute that says, it's going to go up some, you've got to go to the state statute. I think that's correct, right, Ross?
Well, I get a letter from the state on what the state program changes, and then we match that change into the town program.
Right.
Any other conversation about this?
No, I just want to add in that based on all that, I really think that the wording for how this gets revisited needs to somehow be incorporated in being driven by the assessor's office, and whether it's upon recommendation of the tax assessor to the Board of Finance that triggers the button. I really feel very strongly, having watched all of this go down, that this should not be driven by laymen. Excuse me. Pardon me. And that the vast majority of the ordinances that we have in town and that govern our town are driven because we were asked to do it by administration. There certainly are ordinances and laws that we've created based on constituencies who have asked for things. But I think this is such a technical area, and really, of the people I know that have gotten involved in this, there have been laymen who have literally become experts on senior tax relief, and when they're no longer on the body anymore, that's all gone. So I really think we need to get back to a process where this is driven out of the assessor's office, and however we compel it that way, I think that's just a more prudent way of accomplishing the goal of meeting the needs of the citizens rather than sticking it in the hands of elected officials where this ultimately becomes a political football. That's just, I really think we need to revisit just that what other sections to get that cleaned up. And I'm hesitant to make any other change only for the exact reason that we've all been here before. And if we don't move this out and this becomes, I want to change it and I want to smooth this and I want to smooth that, and then we're going to go another year. So I'm inclined to pass this, and I would be open to language change in that one area to clean that up. I'd love to give Ross some time to think about maybe how he thinks that's the best way to do it. Maybe have Chris get some feedback from the Senior Tax Relief Committee at the Board of Finance to get some feedback, and maybe with some good heads put all together with this, there's a better way to do this than just what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and getting the no good result.
And if I may add one thing, and Representative Vergara said it before, and I agree with her. This should never be done independently. I don't care what body wants to do it. This has got to be a Board of Finance and an RTM joint committee, because this is exactly what this turns into. It turns into he said, she said. So that's another recommendation, and that was actually a recommendation from our subcommittee. Our after action thing was, do it jointly.
Jill?
Yeah, I want to strongly agree with Chris on this, in that I think it needs to be joint. We need buy-in. I do think that Pam has a good idea of making sure that it's also assessor-driven. I wanted to make a side note, though, that we, as links to our constituents, it's an important connection that we have that's unique to the RTM. And what drove the really important changes that we made to disability was a constituent letter to me as chair of the RTM Senior and Disabled Tax Relief Committee. And I think that it was really good work that we wouldn't have been able to do if we weren't known to be reviewing this ordinance periodically. So that's a concern of mine. I do think that Ross is integral, and he was the person who drove all of our changes from our original revisions. And I do also, at this point, I'm also tired. I think that probably I'm leaning towards approving what the Board of Finance has given to us from LNA, at least, so that we can have a full airing at the RTM level, because I think that it's important for this discussion to be had more publicly, like in front of the RTM, so that more of the public can hear it, and we get more voices in it too from our two caucuses. So that's where I'm leaning. I do appreciate the work that the Board of Finance did on this. I was frustrated that the work that we had done at the RTM level didn't seem to lead to it wasn't built off of in any way, or commented on even. Like, we don't want to do this because X. So that's it.
Drew, I'm sorry, I didn't see I just saw your hand go up, so you're up now, Drew.
I just wanted to say I do agree with Pam and Jill that if it comes from the assessor's office, and if something is required that it needs to be addressed in a certain time period, that would be helpful, because I was on the Senior Tax Relief Committee, and then the members of that committee were changed, and just time went on and nothing was accomplished. So if the assessor is the person who prompts the change, requests the change, and it goes to a combination RTM Board of Finance committee, and and they know it's at the directive of the tax assessor, then hopefully they'll get it done in whatever shortest period of time as the tax assessor deems necessary. So that's what I would support.
Karen?
I don't think that it would, I guess if we say in the statute that it has to come from the tax assessor, I would not be in favor of that, because the RTM or even the Board of Finance could have a policy reason that they want to initiate a change. So I don't want it to be limited to the tax assessor. Of course, the tax assessor will always be an integral part of any discussion and any changes, but I think it has to be something that can be raised by members of the RTM or the Board of Finance also.
I think that's a good point, Karen. I think that we could probably write language that says, that it's the impetus of it is tax assessor's office. But you would include some type of clause that says that does not preclude, you know, the Board of Finance or the RTM of calling a committee.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just talking off the top of my head. And I don't think we're going to solve all the language on that tonight.
So that's what I'm wondering. Do we want to try and solve this at L&A level, or do we want to pass it along to the full RTM and talk it through there and resolve it there?
I think, Josh, if it's a massive substance change that ends up on the floor, that you're going to end up referring it back to L&A. So my recommendation would be to take another meeting and just get that a whole piece cleaned up and save ourselves a step of going back and forth.
Madam Moderator, do you think that would be a substantive change that would have to come back?
In terms of whether the assessor or the bodies would have to initiate it, and also I guess we're talking about changing whether the committee would be a joint committee of the Board of Finance and the RTM, and does that require any change in a Board of Finance ordinance? I don't know that question. So maybe we do need a little more time to clear that up, unless somebody here knows. I don't know if we in a ordinance about the RTMs, I guess we could do that in that. Sorry, I'm thinking out loud. It could be in that section, but I think it's going to take time to talk through, unless we want to go late tonight, to talk through how things get initiated and also what the committee is going to look like and how it gets formed. To me, that seems like we have to think that through more.
Do I recall that there's any kind of time pressure on this in order to get it worked into the budget?
Right. What is that, Chris?
Hi, Chris.
Sorry.
You're muted, Chris.
So I've spoken to the first select woman because, you know, I was potentially adding $400,000-ish to her budget, right? And I said, do you want to do this? Which she was very adamant about. Yeah, we got to do this. We went through this literally a year ago, rushing through, right? You got to have a number. You know, Ross provides a number for the budget input of what senior and disabled tax relief is going to cost. If he was asked today, I think his answer has to be the current number, right? So until that's passed by all of you guys, I don't think he can give an updated number. So yeah, it's got to be quick if we want to get it in this year.
John,
this is
would you
Ross.
mind showing us again that last clause that talks about the committee? Because I wonder if we could fix that now, and then at another point we could talk about how things are referred to the committee. I don't know.
So I guess I'm not tracking. Are you guys thinking about, and it's none of my business, frankly, but are you thinking about not adopting the table?
I don't think so, but I don't know.
I think we're.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I say the table's the only thing that changes the money.
Right.
From a money
Right.
perspective,
No,
that table's all that changes the money, right?
Yeah, I don't think it was about the table, Chris. It's just that one last thing, but I'm wondering if it just makes the most sense, and it sucks for us because we have to come back, but can we just take a week and have the assessor and the Board of Finance guys throw us some ideas so that we can have a discussion about putting this together in the best way possible? And that way we can just move this all out together in a week and just eliminate one step from all 40 of us arguing about it.
Is that enough time to get it onto the RTM's agenda for this month?
Yeah, I'm just thinking of that. Hang on.
This is Ross. We start taking applications February 1st.
Right.
Okay.
But Karen, you can just put it on the agenda and always pull it.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it should
true.
be on the agenda anyway. That way we can keep meeting on it.
Yeah, I don't know if we need to do that, but I could put it on the agenda for the meeting, and we could always say I could take it off and say we're not ready. So what are we? Just so I know what we're discussing. so it's one thing is this review committee question of both how often are they meeting and the committee is RTM and BOF, I guess. Maybe we have to figure out, the process for that. And then the other question of how the initial idea of changing the statute comes, what is, where would that even be?
It's in the same place, isn't it?
State statute.
I mean, in that same subsection, you think?
Yeah.
So what?
It's all part of when and how often and when and how does it happen that somebody meets to talk about the next year or the next whatever it is cycle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, the state statute basically says if you want to change something with senior and disabled tax relief, your town board of finance has got to initiate it. That's the Reader's Digest version of it. This would then, so if we said, Board of Finance said, oh, yeah, we got to do something, I think what this would say would be something like, okay, it's time to form a committee, and it's going to be 2 members of the Board of Finance, 2 members of the RTM, blah, 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 and you meet, 3 times a week for 6 months. I think that's what you're looking for that to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's
Okay,
just
so
my perspective, and I know I don't have a vote here, so.
Yeah. I have some thoughts on it, but maybe we could, if people are willing to come back in a week, we could spend the week thinking about what we want to include in that. And then I'll just have Betsy put it on the agenda. And if for some reason we don't refer it out, we'll take it off. But I think it's important that we do refer it out. It seems like between the fact that the program starts February 1st and the budget, they need to know the number for the budget. I think we should try to get it. So normally, let's see, an ordinance needs 2 days, 2 meetings to have it read, but we can waive that if we have a 2/3 vote, which I think we could probably get. Pam and Jill, do you think that our caucuses would agree to waive the second month and maybe vote on it in January?
I think
Yes,
so. Have we done that before? Have we done that before?
We have done that before. I think we
have.
have.
Agreed to do it when they submitted it to us in March.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because it was late then. The Board of Finance submitted the recommendation to us March, and it would have been effective for that application cycle.
Yeah.
So Ross, if we pass it in January, at the end of January at our meeting, you can implement it as of February 1st?
I just need the numbers as of February 1st so we can, yeah. Yeah, we might be a little delayed in getting letters out, but it's not going to be it's not going to cause a huge problem because they have until May 15th to come in. And we're expecting the governor to do what he did last year and allow all the people that are due in for renewal to just not have to renew and continue as they were.
Okay.
Ross, is it really necessary that we do this? Is it possible that we have the extra month until the end of February to vote on this? Because it is a substantial ordinance, and these are just benefit calculations. We're not increasing the amount of participants we have. It's not changing eligibility requirements. It's really just the calculation of benefits. So would that time really affect what you're doing with the application intake? Can we have until the end of February to vote?
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, functionally, yes, I can. If all we're changing is the credit and the caps, the credit percentage and the caps, I can certainly, make that change later. We just won't be able to communicate to people what their benefit might be.
And also there's the budget issue. If when does Brenda submit her budget? Isn't it early February that she sent it to the Board of Selectmen? I don't have that calendar in front of me, but
it's the end of February.
Yeah.
The end of February. To the extent that that the RTM might actually want to change the numbers, then that could affect what we tell her the number is. But
I don't think that they include this tax relief number until later on because it's tax loss, remember? And so it's a little different. And last year, it wasn't even going to be approved by us until the end of March.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, last year we were quote unquote including the new number in anticipation of you guys possibly, pushing the ordinance forward. I mean, that is true. We worked with a preliminary number, let me put it that way. But when we don't vote on the budget until, well, you guys vote on the budget, until we set the mill rate. No, I guess it's got to be
Mm-hmm.
it's got to be in the budget. It's not a mill rate thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, we don't have to decide this tonight if we meet in a week, and then if we can refer it out, then we at least can decide. Are we going to try to push people to get the vote in January, or can we logistically wait till February if that's needed? So we could talk about that in a week when we meet.
So are we saying the 13th of January is 1 week from today? Does that work?
I think we had Jill. Don't you and I have a meeting that night?
Yes.
I think, or is that
8:30, right?
Yeah. Hang on a sec. Sorry, folks. I'm just checking.
Oh, no, the 13th is fine.
That got changed.
Yeah, it's
I thought
the
we had
11th.
something. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay,
so
yeah.
I think what I'm hearing is,
so the 13th is good.
so I think thank you. So I think what I'm hearing is that we're going to hold another meeting of LNA on the 13th, same time.
Mm-hmm.
And some group of people are going to take this a little farther for that. I think Chris and Ross, I think we're saying are going to do that. Do I have that right?
That was my
What do you
recommendation.
mean about?
I don't know what more I'm doing.
Okay.
Should be a joint committee between Board of Finance and RTM. I don't write
But we
ordinances. I was made that very clear tonight.
I know,
So-
Chris, but we want you to go back to your committee and ask them for their input and consult with Ross on the best mechanism to getting this kicked off so that we can take that input and coordinate it into something and to craft it into language. So we want you to go to Sheila and Walsh and talk to Ross and figure out what they think the best mechanism is and to give a recommendation to us.
When I call up Sheila and Walsh and say our senior and disabled tax relief, they hang up on me. All right, and you want to do so you want me back here on the 13th?
You can send us it in written format, and if Ross can come back and tell us what you all talked about, that's fine with me. I don't know how the rest of the committee feels. I just think that if it's going to be a joint committee and all three of us are involved, all three of us ought to make a recommendation on how to do this.
Drew?
For the next week, are we addressing the issue of increased participation or not? We're just looking at the numbers.
Oh, no, I'm not.
I think we're. Head, Josh.
Yeah, I think we're discussing this last item. I think that's what we've put on the table here.
The last provision
Bill,
about
Bill
forming a
wanted to
committee.
talk, right? Bill had a question?
I've had a very high level question. I don't want to interrupt this train of thought, but I have a couple just, I haven't looked at this in a really long time, and I let Chris speak because, that was the right thing to do. But I'm trying to remember this stuff from like a year ago. So when you guys are ready to finish this conversation, I just want to level set a little bit and ask a couple of questions. Or
Yeah,
I can ask them now.
Yeah, Bill, do ask him now. And I would just say, let's not use the chat. I'm not seeing your people's chat comments. I'm trying to share screens and stuff and see. So just raise your hand because there's not that many people where I can see everybody.
I just wanted to confirm because the last time I looked at this was I was sitting around the table with you guys and Chris. I think it was at Sullivan Town Hall, January of last year. So is that the last time we met on this?
That is correct, Mr. Gerber.
I think so.
Okay, and so when I'm looking at blue lines on this document, are those blue lines off of something that was originally at that date, or has there been other things that have happened since then, and these blue lines are the last iteration?
Yeah, when we were walking through some of the changes, there were some very specific changes, including the one that references the state statute and this and that we realized was very important to get done before Ross put out the tax bills. So we kind of I don't want to say pushed through because I don't want to give the impression it didn't go through the process, but we expedited that through the RTM, and the RTM did vote on those. I think it was 3 specific wording changes within the document to expedite the process. But other than that, yeah, nothing has changed.
Okay, so the blue lines really are off of something in general that we were looking at a year ago, and so
absolutely
right. Okay, so the changes really that we're looking at are and the major ones are in the table. Okay, thank you. And then I did have a question. And we probably talked about this a year ago, but I kind of remember somebody, maybe in the Board of Finance, was really worried about the proration if we hit the cap, and that it could achieve prorating evenly might not be what we want to achieve. Do you remember that conversation? Because I remember some people were adamant that proration, like a straight proration, was something they didn't feel comfortable with. Maybe I'm making that up.
I'm sorry. I think what you're referring to, Mr. Gerber, there was a
Please call me Bill.
Okay, Bill.
I'm just kidding.
In the last considered version of the RTM proposal, there was a change to I think it was a QTAV, and there was an analysis done. Funny enough, it was done by Mr. Mayor, and he said, "Wow, if we include this change, and I don't remember the exact details to be 100% honest with you, that we could be far surpassing the number we think Ross was going to budget." That change to the QTAV has been eliminated. So there was no Board of Finance concern or CFO concern if that is indeed what you're referring to.
So there's no concern anymore that if we hit the 2.5% cap, that the proration may ultimately hurt, or that it should have been actually sort of what would be the right, it shouldn't be a straight line sort of proration, because the people at the lowest income level should probably have less of a reduction than people at the higher income level. That's what
Bill,
I thought.
It's not an issue. It's not an issue at all, because the cap, as it's written right now, is like 6.5 million. And
yeah, right.
Our committee had done when Bob raised those concerns in the 11th hour, like I think in December or something like that, after he had reviewed it for like 3 months. Yeah, he thought that the QTAV was too risky, and he didn't know how to assign a number to it. So to assuage that concern, we lowered that statutory language from like 2.5% of the town's tax roll to 1.5 or something like that. And so it really severely constricted it. And then people got worried about the proration. Yeah.
And then my last question is, Jill, you're worried about utilization, and you wanted to increase utilization, but you're basing your concerns off of estimates, right? Like there's no real hard science as to what utilization is. This is just a guess, right?
No, I'm not. I'm basing it off of the charts that Ross submits to us. So in the charts, he shows us how many people are kicked out of the program year to year. And each year it has shown a substantial amount of people kicked out because they're disallowed due to excess income. That's why my committee focused on that. And now it's actually last year when he reviewed it with us this past fall, he pointed out that actually there's an increase in being disallowed for excess assets now. Both of them are a problem. So people are literally being kicked out of our programs because they exceed our income limits and they exceed our asset limits. And we're talking about people who were participating and now can't participate because they've exceeded the income limits or the asset limits.
Okay, and those numbers are, yeah.
What? Those numbers keep going up.
Are as of what date are we talking about?
For years now. I mean, I have to pull up the historical charts, but it's been a slow decline since. So 2012 really helped with the participation, because the reason why they did those changes was because they were seeing that trend as well. And so they made changes to increase their participation, and it worked. They were able to boost it up to levels of like 1,600 participants at one point. And then I think like 3 years after, it started declining pretty steadily.
Okay,
so
but I'm
this
looking
is
at the
Ross.
chart
Can I?
and the number. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick comment. The decline in the program isn't primarily from people exceeding the income or the asset limit. Most of the people that leave the program are due to them selling their home and leaving or dying. That's the two biggest categories.
But death is uniform from year to year, Ross. So
I'm just pointing out it made it sound like that was a driver of what's causing the participation to go down.
It's what is variable is the death is pretty much the same year to year, and the people selling their homes definitely changes year to year for sure. We've wanted an analysis from our clerk or to help assist with that too, because I'm sure that's going to be an issue this year. But one number that you can really track very well in all the charts you produce is in excess income and now excess assets too.
Can I just say something about the excess income?
I saw Chris first. I saw Chris first, and then you, Drew.
Okay.
Yeah, if I may, Bill. So back to your original question, Bill. So it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So that's the reason those caps go up every year, because of cost of living, right? So the numbers increase every year, and I remembered it the way Ross said. The highest attrition rate is selling a house or death. Unfortunately, death and taxes are the only two certain things, right? But it's a self-fulfilling prophecy to just keep bumping the numbers, and that's why the RTM committee wanted to put that cap at 90,000. Yes, you're including more people potentially, but I look at it this way: I got a pie, and I only got so much in that pie, and I want to feed as many people as I can with that pie. Do I want to feed people making $10,000 a year, or do I want to feed people making 75, 80,000? I want to feed the more people at the lower end, and that's why the limits went up. That's why we capped. That lower level is never capped at 75%, so we maxed that out. But you're eating up more of the pie in little pieces when you just keep adding on caps on the end. Yes, you might get more people, but what are you going to get? You're going to get more people making $89,000 and given less money, given that same pie, to the people making $10,000.
Drew?
So what I wanted to say was, when I was on senior tax relief, we definitely discussed this income, and my mom's 96, so I see this with her. I agree with Chris that you don't want the total income to come up, but we had discussed like a one-time payment, so a one-time exemption maybe, and I don't know if it's too late in the process to put this in, but you're zipping along and you have your income and all of a sudden you need a new roof. So you have to take out $10,000 more and declare it as income, right? And so that bumps you up. But that's like a one-time expenditure, or your car breaks or something like that. And then that forces them out of the program for that year just because they have that one-time expenditure. So if we can make something, and again, I don't know if it's too late to include this in the language, but once every 5 years, or amortize it over 5 years, where you have that one-time expenditure that doesn't take you out of the program, but allows you to take it out of your brokerage account, fix your roof, but you really don't have any more income, right? You're just shifting it for necessity because you own your home.
And we did explore that because how we categorize it was a hardship clause, right? So a lady had come before us and she's speaking on behalf of her neighbor, and she said, my neighbor had a house down by the beach. House was completely destroyed, and now the insurance company, they built her a new house, and now she doesn't qualify anymore because things have changed. And the hardship clause for me, what's that?
I think I know who that person is.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. She's a very passionate lady. I love her. But my problem with the hardship clause is this. If your mother came before us and said, listen, I had to put a new roof on, I had to go take some money out of my 401k, who makes that decision? Because there's no standing body of the senior and disabled tax relief, right? So do we go before the Board of Selectmen? Do you go before the Board of Finance? Do you create a senior and disabled full-time committee? Oh my God. And when we went down that path, there were so many variables. We were like, the hardship clause, even though it really sounds good in practice, is very, very hard to apply practically.
Okay.
Not that it's not a good idea.
That would be my comment. This is right. It's unmanageable. And it's very difficult to be consistent.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, right? Well, you gave Joe $5,000 last year. Why can't I get it? Well, and the guy who's going to hear about it is the guy who was just talking.
Jill?
A lot of towns have hardship exceptions. A lot of other towns have hardship exceptions, and they locate the authority generally in the Board of Selectmen to make those decisions. I understand the administrative problem in having it, but I do think that there's a need. Like Drew pointed out, there are circumstances that someone really needs to be able to come to a body and explain why their income may have fallen out of eligibility limits. And I would hate to see someone kicked out of the program when they're facing, serious problems and hardships. I think that's what we are trying to address, and so I think that there's a way to craft something that could address that. But I do think, again, like we're going, it's there's so many things that we could do to help this ordinance, but I think that we can't do everything right now.
Karen?
That's what I was going to ask, if Drew and Jill were suggesting we make that change to this, but I think that would be ambitious given our time frame. Maybe it's for the next go round.
Bill, did you have anything else?
I think something like a hardship would address the top number. So we don't have to move the top number up, save money because the top number doesn't go up. But the hardship allows for, if you do have to take out another $10,000 to do your roof, you don't then lose your $7,000 in tax relief. So your roof essentially costs you $17,000. So then you don't do your roof. It's this, I'm sure we all have older parents, and we see the stress that they go under, like, how do I do that, So, or then you save it up, they $1,000 a year, and then they, and then they save for 10 years, and then they die. I don't know. Sorry.
Actually, could I ask one more question?
Well, you know, and again, it literally comes down to the administration of it, and I'll go out on a limb and quote one of my committee members, Sheila Marmion. She used to keep saying, "Baby steps, baby steps." We could sit here, you know, because what was one of the first comments everybody made tonight? Wow, we haven't changed this from 2012. Does anybody after this discussion realize why we haven't changed it since 2012? It's paralysis by analysis. We could go on for another 45 hours and not come to a conclusion on this thing, right? There's always a better thing to do. But my philosophy was, you know, I'm going to add our committee's going to add some benefit. Let's add benefit. The next committee is going to do something. They'll add benefit, right? At some point, you got to cap the benefit. I'm sorry. It's just fact of life.
Phil, did you have something else?
Oh, you know what? I'm fine. Thanks.
Okay, so I think we should wrap this up unless there's anything else pressing. I think we have a plan for a meeting 1 week from tonight, and we have Ross and Chris are going to come back to us in person and or in writing with some tweaks to that last item. And other than that, we are I think in good shape unless I hear otherwise from anybody here.
As the secretary, I want to confirm the item. It's 95-15.4. That's what that we're coming back to discuss that item. The one that says it turns into a combined committee. That's the only thing we're coming back.
Yeah, I think it's called RTM committee, right?
Yeah, 95-15-4 RTM review committee. Yep.
Yes, that's what I got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we might change that to joint review committee or something.
Right. No, I understand that. I just need it for my minute.
Yep.
If possible, you could also accept the changes that were voted on already in the document.
Okay. Do we have to vote on
So
that?
not you, Drew. Not you, Drew.
Oh.
You see what I'm saying, Chris?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. Anything else, anyone?
Okay.
All right. A motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Karen, and second, Jill. Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody. Happy New Year. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Ross.
Thanks,
You too.
Todd.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Ross.
Thanks.